I'm here to talk about our aviation program. In the past, we've done this every year, and in the past, we've talked about the national program. We're really going to focus on our regional, the Region 5 aviation program, and talk a little bit about the people that help run it, oversee it. So we have the Regional Aviation Group, the RAG. So I know Chris is going to talk about the TAL. CAL FIRE has TAL, we got the RAG. That's how the Forest Service works. And you could read this. The Pacific Southwest Aviation Group consists of aviation operations and safety. The RAG supports the efforts of the forest to accomplish safe and effective use of aerial resources through SMS, our safety management system. So we're committed to ensure operational decisions are made mindfully with safety a priority over mission accomplishment, provides oversight and quality assurance to aviation operations, cooperative alliance with all employees to identify and resolve hazardous situations at the lowest level before they result in undesirable conditions, or outcomes, striving to be a leader in aviation operational safety within the government and industry. So here are some of the priorities for the RAG group. Really, these are brought down from Yolanda Saldana. She's our regional aviation officer. So we have our WCF aircraft, which are, as our Firewatch program, our 2 Cobras. We also do have a fixed wing that we're turning in. So they're slots. You get a certain amount of slots for WCF aircraft. So we got 3 slots. We're going to turn in those 3 slots eventually and turn those into more capable. So some of the limitations with the Cobra is we're not able to train aerial supervisors. It's a 2-seater, one's a pilot and one's a air attack. So it limits us in that way. So we're looking at replacing those with maybe 407s where we could use them as Helco platforms and bring trainees along. The third one is law enforcement. Law enforcement, they do a lot of short haul marijuana eradication and reconnaissance for the marijuana over our forest. So they want their own aircraft. They've been doing that program for many, many years, and they've decided they need, it would be better if they just had their own instead of contracting that out. So that's our WCF aircraft in our future, and so that's years out, 5 years out, maybe less. Kind of changing our organization. So there's, we're trying to make our organization a little bit fit our operations. So we fly probably half the helicopters in the nation with the Forest Service. They're all in Region 5, especially in Southern California at the end of fall. Every available helicopter and airplane is down in Southern California available for fires. And we have the same org chart as Colorado, their aviation program in that region too. And they have like 3 aircraft. So we're trying to build our organization that fits our activity. A couple other big things are, our air tankers are changing. As past 5 years, you can tell we're losing the older aircraft and we're getting the jet aircrafts. And a lot of our air tanker bases aren't fit for those aircraft. So we have a plan, a 5-year and a 15-year-old plan. And one of that is Reading Air Tanker project. And so there was an omnibus funds that we got, I think, $16 million to modernize Reading Air Tanker Base. Make it so the ramp's bigger so they could get a DC-10 in there and fly bigger aircraft. So we have 160 agency-owned, contracted, and leased aircraft, and we oversee the FEP program. So everyone knows about the FEP program. All the counties, CAL FIRE's aircraft, those are all FEP aircraft now, not the Blackhawks they're buying, but all the Hueys and S2s and the Broncos, those are all FEP aircraft. And so we have some oversight on that. CAL FIRE does operational, they do all the upgrades, and they're doing a great job. But we also have, our policy says that we need to make sure that we have some oversight over those, how they're being maintained and operated. So in total, it's 338 aircraft just in California that the Forest Service, the RAG group, kind of oversees, touches, inspects. So it's a lot of aircraft. And about 20,000 flight hours this last year, transported over 16,000 passengers, carry over 3 million pounds of cargo in the Forest Service lands. Any guess how much we flew nationally for the Forest Service? Any guesses? Some people probably already know, but. Close. 87,000. So 87,000 flight hours last year, which was probably the biggest year that we've had. And that's a lot of exposure out there if you look at it for risk management. The line that usually is drawn is around 60,000 hours as we have an accident. After 60,000 hours, those years we usually have an accident. So 87,000, it's 20,000 flight hours above our 10-year average. So you really can't see this, but this is the personnel. So the RAG, 29 total, 2 in Vallejo, 14 in Redding. Those are mostly pilots and smoke jumper pilots, lead plane pilots, and in maintenance inspectors. 6 in McClellan. Where's that? Lancaster has 3, and San Bernardino has 4. We're pretty much the same in all of our aircraft. The only thing that has changed is we have 2 more regional air attacks. So we have 6 exclusive use air attacks that sit at our exclusive use air attack bases. Because we train so many ATGSs, the National Office has given us 2 more air attack planes, and one's being put in Redding and one's going to be put in San Bernardino. They've also given us a lead plane. So there's one of the issues that's coming up in the future that we see is our pilot pool. So we will train lead plane pilots, they'll get qualified, and then they seem to go to DynCorp for a lot more money and a lot less part-time work. And so we're losing a lot of pilots, and the industry's sucking up a lot of our helicopter pilots, and this is going to be a problem for us in the future. So we have these lead plane planes, platforms, that are sitting without pilots. So this year we're doing a beta test on contracting a lead plane pilot, which those have been all government pilots from the past. And so now we have government pilots that create a company, a contractor that are contracting back after they retire, and that's what we're using for one of our lead plane pilots or lead planes in the region. So we're going to try it out this year. That is out of the box kind of stuff we need to do right now. And to oversee that program, we're putting, it's going to be an ASM module, so we're putting an ATS, we call them. It's an ATGS, but it's for a Bravo unit to oversee that contractor also. We also still have our night flying AirTac 5-1, and if you guys could read that, those were where all of our platforms are sitting. Klamath, Lassen, Tahoe, Sierra, Los Padres, San Bernardino, and the 2 new training platforms. Is there any questions on that?
On the 87,000 hours you said?
Total.
The number of serious accidents last year?
We had 3 accidents.
That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. And very close calls. So that's fiscal year 18. So Thomas Fire up to, it wasn't the Woolsey wasn't in that. But we had some close calls. So one of the accidents was, it was on the Ferguson, or one of our exclusive use helicopters had a problem, was trying to fly back to base, didn't make it to base, had a hard landing, it was put on its side, and the pilot was pinned in the helicopter, and he had to undo his flight helmet to get out of the helicopter because the helicopter was pinned his flight helmet against a rock. So, I mean, he was very lucky that he walked away from that. Yeah, go ahead.
Going off of one of your air attacks that fly at night, just speaking specifically for the federal government, you guys have any plans or works of any of your rotor or fixed wing having more night flying capabilities in the future, LA County or Cal Fire maybe doing in the future? So
we have one medium helicopter that flies at night, and the air attack is aerial supervision for that night program. So if most of the fires at San Bernardino or on the Angeles, there's always another night flying helicopter there. So that Air Attack 5-1 is there for aerial supervision. It also does a lot of mapping for fires. That's kind of its bread and butter now. It'll fly 400 hours a year, and about 300 is just for mapping. So we're not planning on expanding the night program. We might expand or break off. We're thinking about breaking off that night mapping mission and having a platform to do just night mapping and a platform to just do aerial supervision. So it's not such a distraction doing the mapping. So this is what we do with our fixed wing program. We have aerial supervision program, which we have 2 training programs, one for HELCO, one for ATGS. We signed off, I think, 6 HELCOs last year. So it's a very popular program. We're trying to get all of our exclusive use helicopter crews to at least have 1 HELCO. That's the goal. Take some of the heavy lifting off those air attacks. And that's it, we said all that. So helicopter operations, we got 94 aircraft in the region available for us. 60 of those are CWN. We have half of the nation's exclusive use Type 2s with 17, and half of the nation's Type 1s with 11. And here are some of our programs that we do. Firewatch are the 2 Cobras that we talked about earlier. We do have our Type 3 regional CWN contracts, and that's the 60 contract aircraft. We have 2 rappel platforms, one on the Sierra and one on the Klamath still. We still have that night operations, Lancaster on the Angeles. And aero ignition, we still do PSD and helitorch. Right now, because of the accident, we have taken a tactical pause on PSD operations until we get a little bit more information on what happened in the accident, and then we'll see where we're going with that. Our airworthiness shop, which is our HIPs, our AMIs, which are aircraft maintenance inspectors, and our avionics inspectors. They go and card all of our aircraft, and they're busy this time of year. They're traveling and hitting all those 90 aircraft. Plus, they do some of the national programs, and they go in and they touch some of the county aircraft, and so they're busy. They're very busy this time of year. So other activities we do is, I hope that you've been to the sim room at McClellan. If you haven't, knock on a door and have Julie can show you around. It's a great training room, and Forcers, Cal Fire uses it for the Air Attack Academy. The National Air Attack Academy uses it. Our helicopter exclusive use managers use it for training, and our CWN helicopter managers, they use that also. It's booked most of the springtime. Talked about our law enforcement investigation. That's a very successful program. There's, even though marijuana is legal in California, there's a lot of illegal grows that are still going on in the national forest. And what they're doing to our forests is they're leaving trash and pesticides, and it's really destroying our forest. And the LE&I folks, they're doing a great job cleaning those grows up and keeping our forest safe. And then we have our committees, and this is where we're trying to get a lot of work done. This is where the air tanker base group, they're looking at new headsets for hearing protection, especially with the new jets. There's a lot of high frequency sound that normal earplugs don't really work, so we're looking at new types of noise canceling headsets for those folks. The helicopter working group, that's a large group, and they've done a lot of good work in the past. Some of the products that they've come up with is, and this is a California thing, is so our pad markers that came out of the national cache were yellow. And so that's great when you're in a green meadow, like in a lot of the other places in the United States. But in California, the last 5-6 years, you put a yellow pad in a dead piece of grass and you can't see the pad marker. So they've come up and they came up with the idea we need like hot pink pad markers instead of yellow. So they made that change, they brought that up, and so now in our cache we have bright pink pad markers. Seems like a small thing, but it's a good catch. And the Aero Supervision Committee, they're doing a lot of good stuff with trainees, working cooperative with CAL FIRE, and they've made working on fires with how they run FTAs from how they did it when I was an air TAC or prior to that. Things have changed so well, and they brought up the level of that fire traffic area to a new level. So kudos to that committee. That's all I got.
Are you responsible for the drone program?
Oh, yeah, BLM is a driving force in that they're taking the lead. And so we do have a drone program or a UAS program, but it is fledgling. It's not very, what we're looking at is BLM in the interior to take the lead on that. I did want to talk about two things. Risk management, because it's a risk management conference, and that's more that was all operational stuff. But so what you will see in risk management coming in the future for the Forest Service is FRATs. So if you haven't heard of a FRAT, it's a flight risk assessment tool. There's lots of different types of FRATs, but what we're looking at is a mission-oriented risk assessment. So we do strategic risk assessments on programs. So like we did a strategic risk assessment for like the night flying program before we started it. There's deliberate risk assessments that you'll see on like doing a project or on a fire. You might see a risk assessment, and it's more deliberate. You sit down with SMEs and it takes a day to produce one. So we need a risk assessment for missions. So you might see a daily operational risk assessment, a DORA. You could see an ORM, operational risk management tool. There's GAR. I don't know if you've heard of GAR, green, amber, red, that a lot of our flight crews use already. But so that's going to be in policy that that our crews are going to be using a risk management tool for each flight. Somehow is going to be covered. So that's coming down the pike. And also we had a couple drop summits or aerial drop safety focus groups. We got together. There was a fatality last year from an air tanker drop, and we wanted to kind of re-engage in training and getting the message out there on hazardous, how can I say it? Working under aircraft is hazardous. If it's a heavy helicopter, if it's a S2, if it's a DC-10, that those drops are not, it's an art form. It's not as accurate as you think. Those pilots are great, but there's a lot of inputs to that. So if you take a drop, say a coverage level 8 from an S2 or a DC-10, that's the same coverage level on the ground, right? It's 8 gallons per 100 square feet. But at 250 feet, that drop will hit what they call terminal velocity, and then it rains down. It's pretty much safe. And that's how most of the drops happen. A lot of people feel safe. You know, you talk about normalization of deviance. That's that, right? You're under a drop, you got hit with retardant, no harm, no foul. You know, you got a little wet, red badge of courage, going to camp, and it was like, oh, you're in the hot shade. So from 250 feet, that comes down like rain. At 200 feet, it doesn't lose that forward momentum, and it can take out trees. And 50 feet in a DC-10, that sight thing that the pilots use to see what 250 feet is, or 200 feet, or rise in terrain, little bumps, those aircraft don't follow terrain. They're just flying straight. That is, you know, so we're going to bring out some safety bulletin to show the damage from a low drop. So 150 foot, supposed to be at 250 feet. It will break off trees. It will move boulders. It will crush engines. And we need to spread the word to everyone that the damage that these drops can make. So.
How soon do you anticipate those bullets?
Well, they're halfway written right now, but if we put them out now, no one's going to read them. So getting with Dennis Brown from CAL FIRE, he's agreed to do a low drop with an S2, kind of show so we can video. We want a couple videos. I think that will be our best way of doing that, and maybe a flyer that you could put up at ICP, at the chow lines, the QR code or something, so people are bored, they can pull up the video and watch the video. We don't think that the people we want to watch the video will see the video in an RT 130 class. You know, I'm not sure that all of us are doing RT 130, but I don't know if, say, San Francisco City is doing RT 130, and if they are they looking at propane tanks and electrical wires and fuse, you know, the things that are very in their job when they go and do structure protection on a wildland fire. You know what I mean? So we want to have it. We're trying to find that gap. How do we close that gap with the local fire departments and show them how this is? Because you see a 747 or a DC-10, you can see it from miles. And if you see a lead plane and it's coming your way, and you're sitting doing structure protection with a Type 1 engine on the dead side of the fire, and then they decide to put retardant line along the back side of these houses, what are you going to do? You're going to go out there and check out the DC-10 doing a drop, and that's where you don't want to be.
What's going on in a lot of the units? They're in CAL FIRE, they're meeting with the local counties and giving them their updates. That would probably be a great forum for.
Yeah, we're going to try that out. I'm working with OES and getting at least the word out in California, but you know, that's California, and then we got the whole rest of the United States that comes here in the fall time too. How do we? But yeah, we're going to try that. Catch 'em. Well, up in California. Go ahead.
My question's on you didn't cover it, was the AFUE, the Adult Firefighting Use and Effectiveness Study. That's a Forest Service national program. Is
Yeah.
that still ongoing? And
Still ongoing, top secret. I don't know. Yeah, no, they have the data. It's just they're not laying the data out, and there's people that are, I've seen what they're doing with the data, and so they're looking to see if we're being effective with our helicopters and air tankers, and what is effective. So that question comes up, can we justify $250 million for aircraft? And so that's a good question that people want answers for. It's, and so that's how they're doing that. So A-View is tracking where these drops are occurring, what time, and then they have crews out there that are looking at the fire and seeing what the effects are.
So they're doing that with videos, audios?
They're doing that with, yeah, and using weather data that they have. And I've seen one fire that they showed us what they're doing with the data out of Salt Lake, and I hope they get what they're looking for.
Sean, what's that force that's trying to cover up? Safe pops.
I got 1 minute.
Kind of odd question. We've all been on fires where the communication sucks. How many of you were aware that the air attack platforms have a computer built into them? 3 out of 100. That's kept secret, not going away, right?
I don't know if that's going away. That's built in. Some of the new stuff that's coming up is mesh systems, ad hoc Wi-Fi. So mesh systems is, and we're not there yet, but you could, so a thing can talk, a thing about the size of this can talk to another thing in that system. The air attack can have, is a repeater for that, and so it's just line of sight, line of sight. With the air attack, you can send things on your phone, you can send video, you can send where everyone is, you can send messages to other people. So it's that mesh system is the way of the future, and they're looking at that. But
So if you're out there, got an air attack looking for you, talk to them about the repeater and what Sean's talking about. You might be able to use it. It's been out there for years, hardly ever used. I've been asking firefighters if they know about it. They're like, what are you talking about? But we always complain there's no communications on initial attack. So.
You're right, Pete, that works great. We've had to use it, of course, way out there on my old desert district, because there was just no communication except for running it through the air attack repeater. Awesome.
Okay, we got about 3 seconds. Any updates on short haul or hoist? And then in addition to that, did we add additional ramp capacity at Reading for loading the tankers this year or not?
this year at Reading, I don't know. Short haul, we have 5 short haul programs in the nation. We don't have any in California because all the counties do that for us. And CAL FIRE's come in with their program. So we don't see the need for it. Even though we did 15 hoists this year, we average about 15 hoists on our fires for our firefighters, about 35 medevacs of firefighters per season. So that's about 10 a month during fire season. So there is a need, but we're covered. With Tal's got it. Thank you.